Hello everyone. Today I'm just going to give a quick rant about design philosophy, and then I'll show you all the things I've added since last time. Um, so for solo developers, when you're making a game, you really want to keep the scope as your first priority. And what I mean by that is you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, right? So if you're making an FPS game, it's inevitable that you're going to have to make all those guns. Or if you're making um, let's say, MMORPG, which would never happen, you have to make all those areas, all those systems, all those networking things, right? It would be impossible. So you really have to make sure you design with that in mind. Make sure it's actually possible, what you have in mind. So for this game, for example, um, I'm really making sure that I don't have to make too many assets, or that asset creation at least is very simple, very easy. So that's the first thing. Second thing, to increase the success rate of solo developers is make sure that the game is fun and that there's an actual um, game loop that works really good and that isn't boring. It's actually very easy to not make a game fun. So you want to intentionally design fun systems to make sure the player doesn't get super bored of your game, right? Next thing is don't create any assets or features that relate to the story until the story is established. And if you don't have a story, that's fine. You can add whatever you want, but a story is kind of, I mean, it's pretty necessary. Um, so how do you go about doing that? Well, I've created all the systems here, but I've just used temporary assets. So temporary models, um, temporary, anything that would relate to this story. I'm not implementing any systems that relate to this story like dialogue yet until I'm absolutely grounded on that. Um, so those are my three main design philosophies that I've been sort of following in making this game. Um, and now I'll show you some of the things I've added since last time. So first of all, you may notice the camera is looking a little bit pixelated. What's up with that? So that's intentional, believe it or not. But I feel like it's going to have a nice effect. So you can see when I rotate the camera. It's giving a very interesting, intentional design aesthetic, which I like. It looks very cool when the camera rotates. And this is a pixelated camera render texture that I'm using. That's the technique I'm doing here. So if you're curious what it is sort of popular right now. I also have this feature where you can see behind walls, you can see behind objects. So this is sort of necessary for an isometric game. I'm probably gonna build on it a little bit, but then I want to show you actually how big of a deal post-processing is here. So if I just go to, actually I can do it in the camera. If I just click off post-processing, you can see how immediately gray everything becomes. And it's like night and day difference. This is what it was sort of like before post-processing. But yeah, this is all color correction. I can show you what everything is here. Yeah, so this is tone mapping, gamma, shadows, color curves, right? It's just small things, but it adds like, when you put them all together, it's like, makes a huge difference. So keep that on. I also want to show you some of the URP post-processing features I've added. So render features. without any of these render features, it's like a night and day difference between how the graphics look and how the style looks. So for example, ambient occlusion. Okay, it's not so bad, but it really adds a lot of depth to the scene. And then let's say depth normals. Okay, it's looking quite a bit flatter. You can see the difference. And let's say we don't have normal depth outlines, then what happens? Well, everything looks very flat and boring, and it's not as interesting to look at. Now, you may be intentionally aiming for a look like this, but yeah, these render features make a huge difference. Post-processing stuff. The other thing I've added here is, you probably saw it earlier, but there's some camera culling here at the bottom. So let's say you're up against a wall and you encounter these enemies. Well, now all these blocks that are behind the camera here won't obstruct your view. And then you can see I also have something going on with the camera culling. So if there's nothing blocking your view, the objects remain, but if it's blocking your view, then it is culled out. So that was just a nice feature I added. I also added the GUI you saw earlier, so the ability to choose which attacks you want. And here's just some of the basic ones I've made so far. So that's just a slash that hits one in front. Oh, that's where you are. I've also added this sort of cursor that can shoot the enemy you're currently looking at. So that's just, if something like this does happen, okay, you have a way to get him. So it targets onto the enemy, so that's just an easy fallback. And then let me show you the other attack. So as you can see, depending on how many you select, you receive that many attacks for the next round of fighting. So this one is just a linear attack that can shoot like that. And then I also have this feature here, so chip combinations or attack combinations. If it has the same letter in the bottom left, you can combine them. If it has, or if it's also the same attack. So if these are all the same attack, but they have different letters, you could select them all. Same thing for these. That's just how it's going to be. It's a design choice I like. So let's beat that guy. And then also the damage system that you saw. I'll explain that. So damage system here, enemies right now just have basic linear attack that moves forward. It's easy to dodge. But when you do get hit, you're stunned momentarily and you flash. And you go through a special animation there. So that's just a little bit of designing the damage system. That's about all I've added for now. It is a lot of work adding stuff and it's very slow going. But as long as I'm following my design philosophy, it's going to get done eventually, right? Make sure that things aren't out of scope and you've actually established that it's something you can do, not too many assets, right? The scope isn't too large to complete. That's all I've got done for now. See you later.